Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Here we are, Coffee Experts Club. Woo. Great seeing everybody today. Ben Tadabak, Drew Moody. Drew, you're stateside. Bro, welcome to the United States of America. It's so good to have you here. Welcome.
Mix the water pressure.
I bet you do. I bet you do. Air conditioning that follows you throughout a house, right? And not just limited to one single room.
Nice. Central air. Central air.
Nothing like it.
Right.
Yeah, Drew, welcome back from Belize, man. Great to have you home.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Ben Clatterbuck, how's the week? Tri-Cities, you're in the triple digits, right? Pretty hot.
We had 2 days where it was like, oh, it's so nice out. I got my lawn mowed and now it's 105 again. This weather's nice, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's not humid at least, so there's that.
Yeah. Drew, do you miss cool mornings? Like, I mean, that's one thing coming back to Pacific Northwest, right? Like in Belize, Ben, there's just no cool mornings. Like you wake up and the people of Belize are so funny because they're like, hey, I need a hot drink because it's kind of cool this morning. I'm like, it's freaking 85. Yeah. Like there's nothing about cool this morning, but do you miss Pacific Northwest cool?
I miss it. It feels fresh. You know what I mean? I wake up there, I walk out. As soon as I get out of my bedroom, I'm sweating. Yeah. So still in the house. And then I go sit outside to have a coffee and lose about a pound of water weight.
Welcome back to Pacific Northwest, man. So good to have you back home. Anyway, today, guys, we've got a great guest for the show I'm pretty excited about. He's been a dear friend of mine for a number of years. I've got to watch his life journey and him, starting on the West Coast and heading back, to the Midwest and then coming back to us on the West Coast. Has a great history of coffee, a lot of different versions of coffee. So I'm really excited to bring to the stage, if you could bring him up, Clay Weigand. Clay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much, Aaron. And
welcome.
And also, Drew, thank you.
Yeah, dude. So Clay, these guys don't know you as well as I know you. I feel like I met you when you were a kid, you know what I mean? And now like, obviously you've like both these guys. I feel that's funny. Drew used to have long hair. I mean, that's when I knew Drew. I mean, he's not gonna take off his hat right now and show us probably, but a lot has changed the days I met Drew. Yeah. But I will say, Clay, man, I've just been stoked to watch your journey with coffee. And I know you've done a lot of different things. You've worked for quite a few different coffee brands. And then you went out and you started your own, which is super impressive. And it's led to some passions. I think that obviously all of us, when we get into coffee, we begin to nerd out on certain parts of coffee that we love, and, we talk about that a lot on the show here. Ben and Drew and I, even all three of us work a lot together, but we're all really different on the things we really love and enjoy about coffee and kind of find our niche. I feel like you have really found a niche and I'm kind of excited to talk about it because it's something different than we've talked about on the show before. But I think that your entire coffee journey has kind of led you to a love for roasting it and then like small batch roasting. And so I'm excited to kind of lead that direction, but maybe just give us a little snapshot, your journey through coffee and kind of where it's led you to today.
Yeah. Sweet. So I started working for Dutch Bros. I think I was maybe 16. I think it's the earliest or the youngest you could get hired at Dutch at that time. So started there and had just an incredible experience at Dutch. They taught me not only how to speak to a customer, but also just like how like the little like mannerisms, can really like set the tone for not only the stand, but also to that customer. And so it was great. Also I worked a graveyard shift for one of my stints at Dutch. And so I had a lot of time on my hands. And so during that time, I'm just a nerd and you'll learn that very quick. I use that time to really like learn how the machine operated. I took that time to dismantle the entire machine. I'm sure if people at Dutch were to see this interview, they'd have a heart attack at this point. But I did like dismantle it, and I would like, okay, this tube connects to here, and like really just kind of get to know it at a very granular level. It was my goal and my mission to have a coffee shop someday. I didn't know what that looked like, how I was going to do it, but it was kind of what I wanted to do. I think at that point I was dreaming of having like a coffee cart of some kind. And so
Yeah.
I was like, all right, okay, I need to get this type of like dirty, water tank and then this clean water tank. And because that's how the stands are kind of function. They're on rollers. And so, I was kind of nerding out a ton and I'd had everything down on like an Excel sheet. And then that kind of job I transitioned from there to work at a place called Good Bean in Jacksonville. My barista trainer, who's now currently one of the owners of Forage in Medford. Yeah, he was my barista trainer and awesome guy. His name is Jake Tarando. And Jake Tarando, he allowed me to nerd out as much as I wanted to on coffee. Really kind of taught me the science behind the bean. Not so much, coffee plus milk equals latte, but like, okay, what happens when it's like going through the portafilter and, the science behind the whole thing. And if the water goes through it for too long, what happens to that espresso? Yeah, allowed me to nerd out even more. And so, yeah, life had kind of moved me out to Tennessee for a couple different reasons. But when I was there, life just kind of fell into my lap. I still to this day, I'm blown away at the opportunities that I had when I was out there. I really wanted to get into roasting, and I had this really embarrassing roaster. One of those More roasters where it's kind of like a drum that just kind of tumbled, You plug it into your outlet and, I was like, hey, whoever wants to buy a bag, just pay me cost and whatever I spent on this bean. I really just want to do it for experience. And surprisingly had quite a bit of support through that. But I really wanted to shadow this local roaster in town. I didn't know how to do it because in the coffee communities, there's typically a lot of gatekeeping. There's not a whole lot of transparency when it comes to especially roasting. And so I called up the only local roaster in Hendersonville, Tennessee, about 15, 20 minutes outside Nashville. And I said, hey, I'm not trying to be weird. I don't own my own business. I'm just a random kid. At this point, I was selling cars. I just want to see how you roast coffee. And he was more than happy to show me how you roast coffee. So I went in and met him. He's this retired Navy captain and just had this local roastery as a hobby. He didn't really need it. But upon meeting him, he expressed to me how he's been wanting to sell the business. He's kind of tired and needed somebody young to kind of come in and step in and revamp it. And he offered me the business. And I said, I think at this point I was 21 years old, 22 years old. I was like, sorry, I don't have thousands of dollars to buy your business. I appreciate the offer. Thank you so much. And this was within my first year of being in Tennessee, by the way. I hadn't been there for too long. So I didn't really have a strong friend group there. I just tried out this new church that week after meeting this roaster. And when I went to this church, I met the worship leader because I also have a background with worship for churches. So I met him. He asked me what kind of stuff I'm into. I said coffee. I told him about this cool experience at this local roaster that I had. And he had told me that he had been praying for a business to invest in, that he's managing his grandfather's company, the financials behind it. And it was very successful and was just looking for other smaller companies to invest in. So he's like, I'm only going to offer it once because I don't want to take anything from you. But how would you feel if I bought it and just paid you to run the entire thing? And he goes, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to manage employees. I don't want to manage how you roast coffee or anything. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to be able to manage the back end finances, the payroll only. Wow. Everything else would be your game. And I was like, at this point, I'd never managed anything in my life, let alone people, an entire company. But, I found a little bit of inspiration from my time at Dutch. And I was like, at some point, Travis Boersma didn't know how to run a company,
That's right.
And here he is. And so I'm like, eventually I'll probably learn. I'll probably get a few smacks on the hand and, I'll learn as I go, but why not? And so he asked me if I'm ready to start a company. And I just so happened to have all those Excel sheets that I created at my time at Dutch. And I was like, I know exactly what kind of machine we need. I know exactly what kind of like tubes and fittings we need. I know it all, And so we took over that roaster. We changed it from Portside Java to Bad Habit. And then that was going great. It was successful. And then Tim, that financial backer, Tim had come back from Europe, and when he came back, he was like, why aren't we serving drinks? And I was like, it's a good question. That's all I know is how to serve drinks. And so at that point, we turned the other half of the roastery into a coffee shop. That was going well. Sorry, it's a long story. That was going well. So a few months later, we opened up our second location in the next town over. That was still going well. But yeah, it's kind of my start with coffee. And I'm not sure if you want me to get more into whatever out from there, but
let's acknowledge a couple of things real quick, and then we can keep going. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So let's acknowledge first, like, I know we trash talk a lot, and like there can be a lot of negativity around, but let's at least tip our hat to the fact that Dutch Bros has had such an impact on every single person on this call. You understand? So for all of us, coming out of roasters up in Tri-Cities, like Wes Hayden was a Dutch Bros franchisee that ended up breaking away from Dutch Bros. But honestly, Roasters was just a repackaging, right? A repackaging of a lot of the things that Dutch Bros did really well, and I think that the core values for Roasters was speed, service, strength. I think that there's a lot of that was embedded from that culture, and just cool to see somebody stand up and say, I see a need for this and I'm going to create something, and then I'm going to franchise it. And then to see iterations and clicks come out of that, where, I feel like De Las Mayas, Coffee de las Mayas for me and Drew is just one click from Roasters. You know what I mean? So it's like to watch the clicks, and for you, Clay, for you to be saying, hey, this is where I got a lot of my origin. This is where I took it all apart. This is where I got a lot of the birthing of ideas. And then now you have this new idea and a new iteration for a guy that doesn't know anything about coffee, but is trying to empower you to go do something. And you took it and made it your own. I think that that's super powerful. That's the first thing. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is, it's funny how many people start on janky roasters. I just think Van, as soon as they were talking about, I was thinking about that janky roaster that Wes had in the back of it in his garage there in wherever, Kennewick or wherever that house was at. But he would just like stir it by hand. Like just out there, like stirring it in the bin, like just a manual. I just thought, man, how far people come, but just obviously producing at a high level was amazing.
Man, yeah, and I feel so bad for all the people that bought coffee. It's probably the worst coffee. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I love it. So then you're doing that there. And I know that like things changed, and there was some structure changes, and there were some decision-making changes, like within your funding and all those different pieces that kind of led you away from that and kind of brought you back here to Southern Oregon. And, has kind of changed your direction on even like career and things you're doing, but you still, I feel like that was a lot of the origins for you for like the things you have passions for now. And maybe we could talk about that a little bit, like what, and we can still go into that story as far as you want to go into that story, as far as opening locations and serving drinks and all of that. But I think the thing I'd really love to do today at some point is talking to you about small batch brewing or small batch roasting, like coming to a spot, like that's something we've talked about on the show. And I think that's kind of a passion towards, and I'd love to just talk about roasting a little bit and kind of where that's led you and where you're at today.
Yeah, well, I would say initially, like from the start of coffee, I always had a passion for it, not just so much because it's fun and it allows me to nerd out, but the effect it has on community, specifically with making drinks. I realized very early on that it brings together all ways of life. So specifically, if I bring this up because, I was in Tennessee, and, you have a predominantly Christian people, but if you're to meet up with somebody who's not a Christian, where are you going to meet up? You're going to meet up over coffee probably, and you're going to have a conversation, and you're going to start a relationship with that person. Or if you have an interview, potentially it's going to be at a coffee shop, or maybe you have a first date, you're going to meet up at a coffee shop. And so I loved the idea of, man, how can I encourage this community, this connection that's going on? And for me, it was like, it's something as little as putting a drink in front of somebody and allowing that relationship to build and to grow. And so with small batch roasting, I haven't thought about this in a while. So Bad Habit initially was birthed in my mind. I really wanted to have some sort of community based, like I didn't just want to roast coffee just to roast coffee, just have a brand, just to have something that I could post on social media and be like, this is really good and this is really cool. I wanted to have something a little bit more meaningful, a little bit more impactful on my community. And so I named it Bad Habit because the goal and the mission of the company was I wanted to team up with churches, specifically in the Nashville area, and sell them beans, but also have some sort of program where I could give them a bag of beans, not a wholesale bag, but like a smaller bag, like a 12-ounce bag of beans, where they could sponsor somebody in their church that might have been dealing with addictions of any kind. Didn't matter if it was substance abuse or any kind of addictions. And they could develop a relationship with that person and leaders at their church. And if they were to stay clean or however that looked, they would get a bag of coffee. And so it's kind of like trading one bad habit for another bad habit.
Really?
It was kind of my idea behind the entire thing. And so that kind of stuck with me. So even though I'm no longer doing coffee, spoiler alert, I'm now doing IT work, very different from a past life. I still like have this, I guess, this pipe dream of like, man, it would be so cool to like do something like that. So yeah, I don't know how that looks for me. I still have dreams of still doing, small batch roasting and being able to have something along those lines of helping out people in my community. I don't know if it's in that same way or another way, but I'm doing something more than just roasting batch by batch, being able to influence the community around me.
You could be the first nonprofit roaster. I don't think those exist at all.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive-Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it, and you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes, how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee, and it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there.
How was the transition moving from, you said, you know how to make drinks, and you got nerdy about the machines. How was the transition going from making the drinks to knowing all the ins and outs of the coffee and then recreating your own menu to then serve those drinks you knew before, but in your own way?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a secret that now everybody knows. That I knew because I went to a roasting school in Minneapolis through Mill City Roasters. So I had like those like foundational skills of like, this is what if, you have like your curve, whenever you're roasting. I knew like what the curve looked like. I knew like by adjusting my airflow and my gas, I knew like what would happen to that curve. So I knew like picturally what my curve should look like. And of course I saved the data entry for every single roast that I did. And I would take notes along with like at what times I did specific things that, when I dropped the beans and when I adjusted my gas and my airflow, and I kept track of all those things with every single roast I did. But the secret though, is that there's a sense of like, I still don't know what I was doing. It's like, I knew that it worked and I knew that people liked it. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to keep doing that. Whatever I did, I'm going to keep doing that, and then of course, because I kept, that entries of everything I did, it still tasted the same as the previous batch. And the secret, is that I don't really know exactly what I was doing as far as like, if you were to tell me, hey, Clay, on this next batch, can you bring out a little bit more of the fruity side? Or can you bring out a little bit more of like the floral or the chocolatey notes? We can try, I can try it for it not to taste bad, that's what I can promise. But as far as learning like the ins and outs and everything, I didn't really, still to this day, I don't really know.
Don't you guys think that's kind of coffee 101, right? Like as far as I feel like just thinking about all the situations, Ben, that you got yourself into with like having to pull off like ridiculous fixes on machines you had no business working on, or Drew, like you've been pulled into the absolute belly of the beast on the things you've had to pull apart and build and put back together. And it's like, hey, why did that work out that way? You're like, I'm just glad it works. I don't know why it ended up working again. I think so I think that Clay, the funny thing that you just let out of the bag is I'm not sure there are a ton of people that know exactly why and how everything works. And I think that's one of the beauties of coffee, right? Is that, hey, is it working? Great, just lean into that. Like, did I like the taste of that? Awesome. Let's just keep serving it that way. I think that, I mean,
Yeah.
that's funny.
More common than most people would admit.
It's the I'll figure it out industry.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
figure it out. I'll figure it out at some point.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm curious that with your shop and the cafe part of it, did you lean more on the Dutch Bros side of like the fast food style coffee, super sweet, super all that, or did you lean more of the third wave side, super
Mm.
super craft, and what made your decision process in that?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. As far as how the coffee shop looked, like presented itself, was designed, I guess you could say, it was definitely more third wave. Um, there was a coffee shop, many coffee shops in Nashville, but like the forefather of third wave coffee in Nashville is Crema. And Crema, people would travel from Hendersonville into Nashville just to get a coffee from Crema. And so I immediately saw firsthand, like there was a need for this in Hendersonville. And so I wanted to just kind of save people a trip into Nashville. But
Love
I wanted to have that look. I wanted it to be clean. I wanted it to, your black, whites, grays, plants, your green, I wanted it to have a certain look. And so that's kind of what we did. As far as how we were just as employees, I really wanted to hire people that weren't your typical third wave group, a little bit more personable. I could count, like, I won't say the name of the coffee shop, but there was a coffee shop I went to in Nashville where one of my favorite drinks, just like as a quick drink, was, if you could call it that, was it's like just a double shot with like a little bit of whipped cream in it. And so like it would like just melt the whipped cream.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really good. So I went to this coffee shop and I was like, yeah, can I just get a double shot? Just a little, just like a tad bit of whipped cream. And he was like, we don't have whipped cream. Okay, got it. And then the next person after that, they got just a normal drip coffee. And they're like, yeah, where's your cream and sugar at? And the guy's like, it's over there. And it was like all the way across the entire room. So you had to do like this walk of shame to go get your cream and sugar. And I was like, man, I don't want that. And again, like, to bring it kind of full circle, if my goal, my mission is to bring people together, whether it's for a first date or they're just on the way to work or something, it shouldn't matter what kind of drink I'm making. It shouldn't matter if it's blended. It shouldn't matter if it's just a pour over black straight up, if that's my goal, if that's my heart, then it doesn't matter what drink I'm making. And so I kind of brought that Dutch Bros kind of philosophy, I guess, to the workplace. But as far as how it looked, it was definitely more of your third waves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. There's quite a few more third wave shops that could use some Dutch Bros influence.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as when it comes to your heart for small batch, do you feel like, I know that's something that you're still toying with around out here now, being kind of come full circle and still having this passion in your heart and your desire to lean into something, but like having a career now as well, balancing that passion with career. In your mind, like, would it be to get different origins and try different small batches for the sake of playing like with it? And then is your heart still, would it be to make it available to public at all? Or are we talking about like just family and friends? Or when you think small batch, what does that mean to you? And what's something about it that makes it exciting to you and something that you'd like to try, and maybe pull that apart for us a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I've thought about that. I guess in my mind's eye, I think I would like to do something kind of like how I did in Tennessee. I really enjoyed like meeting up with different companies. Typically it was churches. I met up with different churches to provide, I say wholesale, but typically it wasn't like massive churches. The biggest church I think had like 2 or 3 locations that we did. And it was probably about 60 pounds a week, I think every 2 weeks, I want to say is what they ran through. So that would probably be like my limit. I don't know if I think if you were to ask me back in Tennessee, I'm like, yeah, let's put it in Kroger. Let's put it in like all these like mass, these grocery stores. Now I'm like, I don't know if I'd want that. I really enjoyed like the small, intimate meeting up with the church, telling them, that my intent in selling coffee. There was also really cool experiences that I had where there was like a local brewery that wanted to team up with us to basically make a porter. And they did. And it turned out really good. I don't know how they did it, but yeah, mixing a brewery with beans. And it was like this really cool, like coffee porter stout thing. And it was really good. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. So I don't know, something along those lines that are kind of out of like your typical what you do with coffee, but something a little bit more small and intimate, I'd say, would be what I'd be interested in doing.
I feel like that fits sort of like your ethos of everything we've been talking about of like creating, tight knit communities. It's obviously hard to do that, if you've got 60 accounts and you just like roll them out like day in and day out. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
it seems like, yeah, that fits really, really tightly intertwined with what you did with the coffee shop previously.
Yeah, and I'd say it was definitely a challenge. It was always kind of like it's a weird line because when you put yourself out there as a company who's helping out people with addictions and people with different struggles, how do you come out with a drink that's teaming up with a brewery, with a local brewery? You know,
Right.
that was kind of a challenge and just kind of like still doing what you're passionate, but also, yeah. And for me being from the West Coast, I wasn't used to the Bible Belt at all. And so I'm trying to find my lane there and not trying to step on toes. And even, when we first launched the business, I had the majority of people around me tell me that the word bad habit for a company was not a good idea. You didn't want to have a negative connotation to your name. And that was definitely like a Bible Belt thing. I'm like, in the West Coast, this would be sick. Like this would be like
So
so
sick,
on.
right? All right.
And so, yeah, just being truly like almost like a different culture.
That is
I
funny
think
that
that,
people think about is the Bible Belt culture and just how different it is from the West Coast. So
yeah,
I've been down there a couple times, and every time I'm down there, I'm like, you guys are all so nice.
I think culture is a crazy thing to think about too, because I know a lot of people listening to coffee, a lot of people that are doing coffee, a lot of people that are expanding coffee come out of Pacific Northwest. It's like the crib, you know what I mean? But I think that the further we stretch, I think the realization of this is a different place, it's a different culture. I think of like CJ and Lynn's like taking their brand Outsider out to the East Coast and into South Carolina. And I just think that it's a different culture. Like Dunkin' is influencing coffee on that part of the map. It's not a coffee chain like we understand coffee chains from Pacific Northwest. And like they're having to think about things like having sweet tea, and it's like, what are we even talking about here? Like that, I mean, like, it's just so different. And I know for Drew and I did being down in Belize, you take a Pacific Northwest idea and you take it someplace else, but having to ask ourselves, does this translate the same way? You know what I mean, we understand this game. We got there and it's like energy drinks have not hit there like energy drinks have hit here. You know what I mean? And so it's like us having to introduce a concept and having to like, no, this is what you can do with energy drink here. But the cool thing about that is you're just like pushing reset on like 20 years ago. We know it's coming, like it's going to be a craze, so then you're just like investing. So for us, like taking our own energy drink down there, realizing that we're sowing seeds into something that we're going to reap on, some space down the road. But I do think it's an interesting thing to take coffee culture from the Pacific Northwest, especially like we're talking about a Dutch Bros culture, a third wave culture, things that have come out of this end of the world and then taking it someplace else, but taking in consideration the culture you're stepping into it's an interesting thought as well. So
yeah. And also like, and to touch on that a little bit too, I do remember telling some friends in Tennessee and Hendersonville that we're going to come out, with a third wave coffee shop. And a lot of people were like, "Ah, they have Starbucks. Like, I don't know if they're going to go for it, But to your point, Aaron, kind of holding true to what, to what your passion is and going for it. And then like trusting that you're going to reap that harvest in a sense. People are driving frequently to Nashville to get this. Like, why wouldn't they stop here?
yeah.
And coffee is such an interesting field to be in because you're solely dependent on taste buds. And, it's like, I remember one of my challenges for starting out is whose taste buds do I trust? This customer can tell me like this is like the best drink I've ever had. This customer can say, meh, it's okay. It's a little too watered down. It could be anything. And it's like, what do you do with that?
Right.
And just like for me, what that looked like is I just trusted a few people. I had like only a few people that I could really trust. Like, yeah, like I trust their taste buds. I trust their judgment on coffee. If people don't like it, that's heartbreaking. And we're probably going to stay up all night looking at reviews. But at the end of the day, like if they don't like it, like you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with like people not being your customer. And that's my biggest hurdle. Yeah, just kind of being okay with them going to Starbucks, and that's okay. It's almost like, you see restaurants that have almost every type of food on their menu, and you have like this underlying feeling of like, I don't know if this is going to be good. you know, but when they only have like 5 items, you're like, this is going to be great because they've like, this is what they do every single day, you know, and they believe in those 5 items.
Yep. So good. So good. Clay, brother, thank you so much, man, for being willing to sit with us a little bit and share just with us your history and your crazy journey and all the things that you've got to see and do. It's probably these people that you all work with out there in Grants Pass doing IT don't know that they have this like wealth of a coffee connoisseur in their midst. And I think, brother, we're so grateful for you. Thank you for all the things you do for Collab team. Thank you for all the things that you bring talking about coffee. I think it's a wealth, and man, I'd love to maybe have you on again downstream.
I would love it. I would love it. Thank you so much, Aaron, Ben, and Drew. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Ben, Drew, thanks for being here with us. Coffee Experts, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week here on Coffee Experts Club. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.